Hello everybody, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well and I wish you very happy new year 2021. So the new year is here. We hope it will bring you a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, a lot of serenity and a lot of good things, okay? May 2021 make up for all the uncertainties and all the agonies and all the doubts and fears that humanity experienced. So here I am again with another video, and this time I'll be dealing with past tenses. In the previous video, I introduced the present tenses, basically the simple present and the present continuous. And now we'll talk about the past tenses. As you remember, I told you in the previous video that we have 6 tenses to talk about the past, right? We have, of course, the simple past, the past continuous, the past perfect, the past perfect continuous, plus the present perfect and the present um, perfect continuous. Now, these tenses we all use, we use them all to talk about past actions, okay? Now, we'll start first with the simple past and let's get started, okay? Now, first, we talk about the uses of the simple past. In what cases, in what situations we use the simple past. We use the simple past to indicate that an action or an activity started and finished in the past, especially if there is duration in the action, okay? If there is continuity in the action that started and finished in the past. Now, as we read these examples, you will understand the idea better. I played football for 6 years, okay, but now I don't play football anymore. Now, this is a past action, something that started and finished in the past. I played football for 6 years. How long did you live in Paris? I lived there for 10 years. So here again, the action of leaving was continuous. There was a certain duration, but it started and ended in the past. I walked to school yesterday. I walked to school yesterday. So here again, the action of walking involves some duration. Probably it took me 5 minutes, probably 20 minutes. So the action of walking started and finished in the past. He swam in the river all day yesterday. All day yesterday. So the same thing applies to this example here. The action of swimming involved a certain duration, a certain time, but it started and finished in the past. Now, in this case, when we use the simple past in this case, we need to use time expressions, like for example here for 6 hours, or for 6 years, I'm sorry, here for 10 years, yesterday, and all day yesterday. Now, these time expressions, okay, indicate that the action started and finished in the past. They are very important to use when we use the past simple in this sense, okay? Situation number 2, we use the simple past when we talk about completed actions in the past. Completed actions in the past. Examples, we went to the zoo last week. All right, we went to the zoo last week. 2, sorry, what did you say? I said that you are stepping on my foot. I said that you are stepping on my foot. The train left at 6 this morning. So these are very simple past actions, that were completed in the past. Most of the time, we use time expressions to indicate when the action took place. When we use the simple past in this sense, we use time expressions like last week, this morning, yesterday, 2 years ago, 1 week ago, etc. Now, these time expressions indicate the time in which the action took place. Situation number 3, we use the simple past to talk about past habits or states. Of course, you know what I mean by habits. Habits are things that people do often, right? Or states again. Look at these examples. We often went to the cafe after work. This was a habit for us, okay? But we no longer do this habit at the present. We often went to the cafe after work. So this was a past habit. He really liked sport and was very fit. He really liked sport and was very fit. So he liked sport. This is something that he used to do in the past, and he was very fit. This is a state. His state was very fit. So this was in the past, but probably he is no longer like that in the present. Probably the present or the situation in the present is different than that of the past. In literature, we use the simple past to talk about a chronological order or the chronological order of events in a narrative, okay? Like, for example, in a story, in a novel, or in a play. For example, here, she suddenly opened the door, looked at us with a strange expression on her face, and then left without saying a word. So here there are three actions, one coming after the other in a chronological order. Okay, it's like a series of action, one coming after the other. So in this case, we use the simple past, especially if we refer to past actions. Now that's for the situations or the uses of the simple past. Now, what about the structure of the simple past? Now here, as you see, we have three forms: the affirmative, the negative, and the interrogative or the question form. Now, the simple past is used like this. In the affirmative form, we start with the subject plus verb plus ed plus complement. But this structure here applies only to regular verbs. Regular verbs. As you know, in the English language, we have regular verbs and we have irregular verbs. Now, this rule here applies only to regular verbs. We add ed to the verb to form the past form of the verb. For example, we chased the butterfly in the meadow. So the verb to chase, okay, is regular. It ends in E, so here in this case we add just D, okay? But if you have another verb, like for example, the verb to swim, so swim is an irregular verb, we don't add ed. We say, he swam in the river. He swam in the river. Swim in the infinitive becomes swum in the past. S, W, A, and M, okay? Now we need to pay attention to whether the verb is regular or irregular. I will post to you a list of irregular verbs so that you can practice them and why not memorize them? Because I mean, there is no way to remember irregular verbs, but to practice them a lot. The negative form, we have subject plus did not plus base verb or bare infinitive plus complement. Now, what is a base verb? I think I explained it before in one of my videos. Base verb or bare infinitive is the verb without to. For example, to leave is the infinitive. The base verb is just leave. To play, the base verb is play. We call it base verb or again, bare infinitive. Now here, the example, we did not want to disturb you. We did not want. So want here is the base verb. We did not want to disturb you. In the question form, we start with did plus subjects plus base verb plus complement, okay? Did you see the UFO? Did you see the UFO, the unidentified flying object? So the verb here, to see, we use it in its um, base form. Now these are the three different forms in which we can use the simple past: affirmative, negative, or question or interrogative form. Now what about the spelling? I mean, sometimes the use of the simple past or the conjugation of verbs in the simple past creates a lot of problems for students in terms of spelling, right? Now here is what we do. For most verbs, we add ed, okay? We add ed to form the past. For example, I called him last Monday. So the verb is call. To make the past of the verb, I added ed, as you see in the example here, written in red, okay? I called him last Monday. I watched that film yesterday. So watch, we add ed, right? This is like the general rule, but sometimes there are other verbs in which we don't use this. I mean, those are exceptions that I'm going to explain right now. For verbs ending in E, I mean verbs that have E at the end, we add just D. And I gave you the example of chase. We chased the butterfly in the meadow. So chase ends in E. We add just D. The verb to dance, she danced. So dance ends in E, so we add just D. She danced in front of all of us. He smiled and then waved bye-bye. He smiled, so smile ends in E, so we add just D, and then waved bye-bye. So I repeat again, if a verb finishes with E, we don't add ed, we add just D, okay? For verbs ending in consonant, plus stress vowel, plus consonant, we double the last consonant and add ed. There are certain verbs that end in a consonant plus a stress vowel plus a consonant. Now you may ask me, what is a stress vowel? Now, as you know, in English we have stress vowels and unstressed vowels. Stress vowels are higher in pitch and we place certain stress when we pronounce them, and we pronounce them in a stronger way, okay? Unlike unstressed vowels, we don't emphasize their pronunciation, okay? Now let's give you an example. We stop. So here stop, O is stressed. So the verb to stop finishes with the T, which is a consonant, O, which is a stressed vowel, and P, which is a consonant. So we double the P here, okay? We double the P, and we say we stopped the thief. So as you see, the way I pronounce the verb stop is a little bit stronger. There is an emphasis on the vowels, stop. So we stopped the thief. So here we double the P. He begged them for pardon. He begged them for pardon. Again, beg here, the E is stressed. The vowel here is stressed, okay? Let me give you an example in which we don't double the last consonant, despite the verb finishes with consonant, vowel, consonant. For example, edit. Edit becomes edited. So here, edited, we don't double the T. Why? Because edit is not, the vowel in edit, which is I, is not stressed. Sometimes we have verbs ending in a consonant plus Y. Now in this case, we remove the Y and add IED. For example, he studied harder this year. The verb study ends in Y. To make the past of this verb, we remove the Y and add IED. He studied harder this year. The child cried all morning. Cry ends in Y. To make the past of the verb cry, we remove the Y and we add IED. John married Linda last year. So this is all about the spelling of the verbs when we conjugate them in the simple past. And remember, hey, I tell you, grammar is important, but spelling is importanter, okay? Try to remember this rule and see whether we have any problems here, okay? Now, the past continuous. Past continuous. Of course, we call it past continuous or past progressive. I think I mentioned this before in another video. I told you that progressive tenses or continuous tenses, it doesn't make any difference. They are the same. Whether we say the past continuous or the past progressive, it's the same. Now, when do we use the past continuous? We use the past continuous to indicate that an action started in the past and continued in a certain time period. Now look, I underlined this expression here. So past continuous, there is continuity in the action, continued in a certain time in the past, okay? So there was continuity, there was duration in a past action. For example, the team were training yesterday at 5 p.m. The team were training yesterday at 5 p.m. So the action of training here took, for example, 2 hours from 5 to 7. So there was continuity, there was duration, there was progress in the action. Okay, that's why we use, in this case, the past continuous. Mary was working at her office yesterday afternoon. Mary was working at her office yesterday afternoon. So the same thing, the action of working at office took some time, took a certain duration. That's why we use the past continuous to emphasize that duration. Okay? Situation 2, we use the past continuous to describe an interrupted progressive action in the past. Okay? I'm going to explain. At first, this may sound like ungraspable, but I'm going to explain this. The second clause that starts with when should be in the simple past. Of course, we need to have examples to understand this particular case. I repeat it. In this case, we use the past continuous to describe an interrupted progressive action in the past. Now here, the first clause, we should have the past continuous, but in the second clause, the simple past after when. Let's consider this example here. He was driving to work when he crashed his car against the wall. So the first action was progressive. He was driving, okay? And then something happened suddenly and interrupted the first action, which is the action of driving. What happened? The car crashed against the wall. So this second action interrupted the first action. In this case, we use this here. We use when, and after when, we don't use the past continuous, we use the simple past. The action which is in the simple past interrupted the action which was in the past continuous. I hope I made it clear. Now, let's see another example here. I was hanging out downtown when it began to rain. I was hanging out downtown when it began to rain. So the first action, which was progressive in the past continuous, is hanging out. I was hanging out. This action of hanging out was interrupted, was stopped by something, which is rain, which is it started to rain or began to rain. So again, the verb that comes after when here should be in the past, okay? It began to rain. All right. Another situation, we use the past continuous when we talk about two parallel actions in the past. Two parallel actions in the past. What do you mean by parallel actions in the past? We mean that these two actions happen at the same time in a parallel way, right? Now, in this case, we don't use when, like the example or like the situation that I've just explained in the previous slide. In this situation, we use while, not when, okay? For example, the boys were playing cards while the girls were watching TV. So here, playing cards and watching TV were happening at the same time. The two actions were progressing at the same time. Remember, please, that we connect the two clauses here using while. Another example, while Sarah was tidying the room, comma, her mom was preparing breakfast. While Sarah was tidying the room, her mom was preparing breakfast. So again here, the action of tidying the room by Sarah and the action of preparing breakfast by her mother were happening at the same time, were taking place in a parallel way. So again, we connect the two clauses using while. While we can use it at the beginning of the sentence, okay, but we should use come after the first clause that is introduced by while, okay, like here and like in the third example. While the woman was begging for help, while the woman was begging for help, everyone was filming her with their smartphones. So here again, the two actions are going together. The woman is begging for help, but the onlookers are filming her with their smartphones, okay? So the actions happen at the same time. If you prefer to use while at the beginning of the clause, you need to put the comma as I have in the examples here, after the first clause, okay? We use the past continuous to give background information in a story, right? Again, in literary works, right? Sometimes we use this tense to give background information in a story. For example, here, it was getting cold and very dark after the moonlight had faded away. Some dogs were barking and an owl was hooting. I started to feel scared, and the trees and the bushes seemed like ghosts lurking for me. So here I'm giving a background information about the place where I was, or about the atmosphere where I was, right? Using, of course, the past continuous. Situation number 5 is spoken English. I mean, not in written English. In spoken English, we can use the past continuous to emphasize a repeated action that went for a limited and temporary period of past time. Repeated action that went for a limited and temporary period of past time. When she was in hospital, we were visiting her twice a day, right? When she was in hospital, of course, she was in hospital for a certain time, for a temporary time. Now, in that time, we were visiting her twice a day. To be ready for the exam, I was preparing really hard for weeks, okay? To be ready for the exam, I was preparing really hard for weeks. Now, I prepared for the exam for a certain number of weeks, okay, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Now, that period of time was temporary. So at that period, I was preparing really hard, okay? Now, this is used in spoken English, in oral communication, not in writing, okay? Now, when it comes to the structure of the past continuous, this is how we use it. Again, we have the affirmative, the negative, and the interrogative forms. We start with the subjects. In the affirmative, we start with the subjects plus verb to be in the past. What is verb to be in the past? I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, you were, they were. So here we use the past form of the verb to be, okay? Subjects plus verb to be in the past, plus verb plus ing. It's very important, ing, which indicates that the action was continuous. Plus complement. For example, he was playing in the mud. He was playing in the mud. So subject, verb to be in the past was play, which is the verb, plus ing, okay? In the negative form, we have subjects plus verb to be in the past plus not. Not, we add not here for negation to form the negative form. Plus verb plus ing. She was not studying this morning. She was not studying, okay? Now this not makes a big difference in meaning, okay? If I don't have not, it would be she was studying this morning. To negate this statement, we say she was not studying this morning. In the interrogative form, we use verb to be in the past. We start with the verb to be here, plus subject, plus verb, plus ing, plus complement. Were you laughing when I was talking? Were you laughing when I was talking? Yes, I was, or no, I wasn't, okay? Now here I have a few exercises that probably you can stop the video and consider trying to answer them, right? Complete the sentences using these pairs of verbs. Use the past simple in one gap and the past continuous in the other. For example, just as I was getting into the bath, all the lights went off. So here we have what? We have one action interrupting another progressive action in the past. The progressive action in the past was getting into the bath. The action that interrupted it was went off, right? And of course, we have similar examples here that you need to consider and try to answer, okay? I to go away this weekend, but my boss missed some work that I have to finish by Monday. So try to use these pair verbs to complete the exercise. After a week, I'll send you the key and the correction of this exercise, okay? Another one here. This time, use the same tense, either past simple or past continuous in both spaces, okay? The same tense, either past simple or past continuous in both blanks, in both spaces, in all of the sentences here. Of course, you need to stop the video and probably copy the exercise into your exercises notebook or whatever you are using so that you can do the exercise at your pace, okay? Complete this email with either the past simple or the past continuous form of the verbs in brackets. Now here you have brackets. Conjugate, here you have verbs between parentheses. Conjugate the verbs between parentheses in the past simple or the past continuous. Of course, depending on the context. When you read this email, the context will help you, but you need to understand the context very well, okay? Try to do this again, and I will send you the key after a week. But you need to do your best, okay? You need to do your part and do your best to complete the exercise. All right. Now, the present perfect, I told you that though we call it the present perfect, but we use it to talk about a past action, okay? So let's start with the uses of the present perfect. The present perfect expresses the idea that something happened or never happened before now at an unspecified time in the past, okay? The exact time it happened is not important. This is what makes the present perfect different from the simple past. When we use the simple past, the time of the action or the date of the action is specified. We know when the action happened, okay? And the time of the action is very important. But in the present perfect, it is not important. What is important is the action itself, not when did it happen. Examples: Samir has won a lottery. So the emphasis here, we emphasize here in this example, we emphasize the action, not its date. What is important is the information that Samir has won a lottery, not when. When did he win the lottery does not matter and does not make a big difference. Okay, that's why we use the present perfect to emphasize the action, not when it happened. I have already seen that movie, okay? I have already seen that movie sometime in the past, not important when. What is important is that I saw the movie before, right? The present perfect also expresses the repetition of an activity before now, something that was repeated before the present, okay? I have traveled abroad many times. I have traveled abroad many times. Now, the action of traveling was repeated before the present, okay? He has married 3 times. He has married 3 times. So the action of marrying was repeated 3 times in the past. Of course, again here, not important when, but what is important is that it happened, okay? Situation 3, when we use the present perfect with for or since, the present perfect expresses a situation that began in the past and continues to the present. Please remember this. When we use for and since with the present perfect, it means that the action started in the past, the action or the situation started in the past and continues up to the present. In the examples, notice the difference between since and for. When we use since, we use it with a particular time, okay? For example, since 2005. since 1991, for example, right? So since is followed by a specific point of time, okay, either a specific year or a specific date, right? But for, we use it with the amount of time spent, okay, the duration of time. For example, I have been here since 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock is a particular point of time from which the action started, okay, from which the action started. I have been here since 7 o'clock. We have been here for 2 weeks. 2 weeks here is the total amount of time spent, right? It's the duration of time um, spent. We have been here for 2 weeks. I have had the same pair of shoes for 3 years now, okay? For 3 years, now 3 years is the duration of time during which I have had this pair of shoes. I've liked cowboy movies ever since I was a child. So, ever since I was a child, here, childhood is a particular point of time, okay? From which from which the action started or from which the situation started. Since I was a child, I have liked cowboy movies. I've known him for many years. Again, for is followed by many years, and many years is the duration of the situation. Okay, this should make it clear. Since is followed by a particular time, and for should be followed by a total amount of time or the duration of time spent during the action. For the structure, again we have the affirmative, negative, and interrogative. The affirmative form, we start with the subject plus have or has, depending on the subject, okay? I have, you have, he has, she has, it has, we have, you have, they have. So the verb to have, we use have or has depending on the subjects that we have here. So subjects plus have or has plus past participle. Again, now this may create some problems for students. What is the past participle? The past participle is the third form of a verb. Any verb has three forms. Okay, the affirmative, which is, for example, to play, the past form, which is played, and the past participle, which is played again. And we have, of course, we have the present participle, which is playing, right? That's called the present participle. Now, we are concerned here with the past participle, not the simple past, not the infinitive, not the present participle. We're concerned with the past participle. So we use the third form of the verb. For example, the verb to bring. Bring is an irregular verb. The infinitive is to bring, the past is brought, the past participle is brought. The verb to speak, okay? The infinitive is to speak, the past form is spoke, the past participle is spoken. So here we use the past participle. For example, he has spoken with his principal. He has spoken. So we use here the past participle of the verb, okay? Again, I'll highlight the idea that you need to memorize and practice as much as possible irregular verbs, because when it comes to regular verbs, it is very easy to know the past participle, which is the same like the simple past. There is no difference. Both of them end in ed. Okay, played in the simple past and played in the past participle. But irregular verbs can make a lot of trouble for you. Like, for example, the verb to speak, in the past spoke, in the past participle spoken, right? The verb to swim, in the past swam, in the past participle swam. S-W-U-M. Okay, it's different than the simple past, which is S-W-A-M. Okay? All right, so that's for the affirmative form. Negative form, subjects plus have or has, again depending on the subjects, plus not, plus past participle. He has not spoken. to his principal. He has not seen his mom. The verb to see in the simple past, saw, in the past participle, seen, okay? In the interrogative form, we have has or has again, depending on the subjects plus past participle plus complement. Has he seen his mom? Has he played outside? Have they met before? Have they met before? So the verb to meet in the past met, in the past participle met again. Now some irregular verbs can have the same form, okay, like in the past, but not all of them. Okay, that's why I said you need to practice these irregular verbs a lot. Okay, now I think this is it for today's video lecture. I hope that what I explained made sense for you. Of course, you need to stop the video every now and then and probably repeat it to understand, because I know that I try to speak a little bit quickly, and that's because I don't want to make a very, very long video, okay? So you can stop the video whenever you like and repeat the video, replay the video to understand better. And of course, you're always welcome to send your questions using our Google Classroom. And I saw that many of you have joined, and that's very good. Okay, so please encourage other classmates to join. I'll also be sharing homework, a few exercises to do, right? So stay tuned. I'll post these materials tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. So I come to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching and take good care.